It's your iPad. Don't ask me.
We are in horror, right?
I was gonna say that is a horror story for me. Let me tell you. All right. This is nostalgia horror for RPGs. If this is not the panel that you are looking for, you are in the wrong place. If this is the panel that you are looking for, awesome. At some point, if you haven't brought your ticket up, please bring your ticket up. We will gladly take it. That allows us to tell GenCon, hey, people like to come to our stuff. Please give us bigger rooms. We are Darker Days Radio. I am Crystal Mazer. I am one of the organizers for GenCon panels. And then I'm also a co-host for Darker Days Radio. I'm going to let these guys introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Chigg from Darker Days Radio. You may have heard of me. I'm from the internet.
Yeah, and hey, I'm Mike, also from Darker Days Radio. Pretty cool horror gaming podcast. It's been going for 15 years, so quite some time. There's a lot of stuff. And, I don't think Crystal mentioned, all her sweet writing credits and everything.
We do that at the end.
Oh, we do? Okay.
We do that at the end.
I didn't check the show notes for this, so I'm just messing everything up. So I'll hand it off to Crystal then. I'll get started.
Yeah, so welcome to Darker Days Radio. If you guys are fans of us, that's awesome. If not, please check out our podcast. We have a whole bunch of stuff. I run a lot of freelancer and industry stuff, discussions and stuff like that. These guys do Secret Frequencies a lot and some really amazing April Fool's stuff, as well as a whole bunch of other things.
We've never once done an April Fool's thing. I don't know what you're talking about. Those
guys,
are all legit.
They have honest and truly maybe questioned whether their stuff was actually true for some of that stuff. So it was really awesome. What I want to give everybody a chance to kind of get to know us before we go into the panel. And then we're going to talk about what nostalgia is for everybody. From there, this panel is a little bit longer. It's an hour and a half. So we have a lot of time for our discussion up here, but also at the end, we'll do questions from you guys or anything else that you guys have or want to suggest or anything like that. My connection to horror is when I was growing up, I hated anything horror. I was scared of everything, including Werewolves of London, the song. And that went on for quite some time until about my teenage years. From there, we moved to a new place and my family joined a new church, and they actually had a haunted house every year. And it was one that I could volunteer at, and it was one of the top rated haunted houses in Wisconsin. And I very quickly got over my fear as I realized that, horror movies is just people with masks. And it's just a lot of other special effects that a lot of haunted houses can do. And I worked at that haunted house for 17 years. But that got me into things like scary stories to tell in the dark and Goosebumps and all of that stuff. And from there, it kind of grew until I played Vampire the Masquerade in high school. And so that was my connection to horror.
Yeah, much like Crystal, I was also a scaredy cat, but not for horror movies. The first movie that I remember watching as like a tiny little baby me was Dracula. That my parents really, and my dad I guess, really liked horror and sci-fi and nerdy media like that. I was afraid of real life things like, snakes and coyotes, and it was the 80s, so, kidnappers in white vans, terrifying. Getting ahead of ourselves here with nostalgia horror. But I've always enjoyed horror movies and scary books and scary role-playing games. So we're basically twins is what I'm trying to say. Same exact story.
Yeah, interesting question. I thought about this sometimes. I didn't like spooky stuff either when I was a kid. I got freaked out by a lot of things. I was terrified from the movie Time Bandits. I don't know if anyone's seen that, but there's some spooky kind of stuff at the end. And I forgot about that movie until when I was 29 or 30 or something. My friend was like, hey, we should watch this movie Time Bandits. And then at the end I'm like, God, I remember all of this. Someone's gonna get turned into a pig, then there's gonna be a spaceship shooting laser bolts, and that kind of stuff. So we'll touch on those kinds of things during this panel. I think actually a weird formative thing was I saw this movie when I was like 2nd grade or something. It had these vampires, it was like a comedy film, there's a lot of leather jackets and bikes, and it wasn't for a long time that I found out that that was Lost Boys. When I finally stumbled upon it again on the Sci-Fi Channel, like 15 years later, I was like, oh, maybe not 15, like 8. But anyway, yeah, I think that's what it started me down a dark and shadowy path, where in fact I did get into Vampire the Masquerade, and that started the real spiral. And I started to get more into like horror movies after that, because I was like, oh, I can like mine these for ideas and stuff, and then also get freaked out. So yeah, that's it for me.
All right. So one of the things I do like to talk about first is like consent and safety tools. We're just going to briefly touch upon those if you've never heard of those before. This also applies to the panel too, if you need to take a break or anything like that. I'm not expecting us to get into any graphic detail of anything, but if something is too much, please feel free to step out. So I feel like even with nostalgia, especially with nostalgia stuff, you have to have safety tools in place, because nostalgia is this place of comfort for a lot of people. And you can get a little too comfortable with things before you realize things are going on. One of the things that I like to do, especially at like conventions, because I don't know everybody at my table, especially if I'm running something, is the X card. If you're not familiar with that, it is basically a card, and it could be any card. It could be a business card. You put it in the middle, and if anybody touches it at any point, you stop the scene, you fade to black, and you move on. There's no questions asked or anything like, oh, explain your trauma to me. There's none of that. Nobody has to have an explanation as far as what's going on. And these are all used in good faith, by the way. That's the biggest thing, is that you have to be able to use these things in good faith. So what safety tools and stuff do you guys like to use if you're running stuff for people that you don't know, or even if you're running stuff for people you do know?
Yeah, I've used like little consent forms before, where people can say like, this is the stuff I'm cool with, let's not talk about that, or display that in the game. Or these are like kind of like yellow lights, like, all right, like maybe it could kind of be there in the background, but it's not something I really focus on. Those worked really well for me. Although one thing I've noticed at conventions is that we always kind of default to PG-13, which has been interesting, but that's kind of just what the median kind of comes out to be. I don't think anyone asked for a PG game if they sign up for horror, but
I mean, I've run PG horror before, but that's for kids specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a different thing. But
Yeah.
I've also used consent forms. You know, I'm okay with this. I'm okay with a little of this. I'm okay with none of that, kind of things. And then you always get the one guy who's like, I'm all about eye trauma. Put that in there. Every scene. And that's a fun guy to play with. It's not a fun guy to play with. But yeah, and in addition to that, having a card in case, because, you know, if I'm playing at a table with these two, I don't know that Mike has no dogs get harmed at all, kind of thing, on his thing. And if I'm playing at a table with him and I don't know that, and I'm like, I shoot the dog, and he can tap the card, we can do like something else, which is fine.
Yeah, I guess that's the flaw with consent forms, is usually it's kind of storyteller or game master facing, so they really have the total information. And it's up to them to tap the brakes if something weird's going on. So yeah, you should combine it with X cards as well, in case, you know, there's a lot going on in your storytelling, so you might, there could be a lapse that could occur, so it's good.
Sure, and everybody's, you know, we're all just human. We might get into the heat of the moment and forget, you know, this guy has a problem with something happening to, you know, people's fingers getting broken, for instance. So.
And most safety tools are also system agnostic, so things like blinds and veils or X card are all things that you can apply to any game system. And then you have game systems that have things built in, such as Bluebeard's Bride, where you cannot proceed forward without the permission of the player. That's built into that system. Monty Cook has a great form that is free as a resource.
Pathfinder as well. That's a good one.
Yeah, and so there are a lot of free resources out there if that's something that you are interested in. If it's not for your table, that's okay. If you know your players well enough, or like I have my RPG group has been playing together since high school, and so we are extremely familiar with each other. I generally don't use safety tools, but if somebody always says stop, I always stop and we move on. So because you never know, like they might be going through something personal that they don't want to talk about. Totally fine. All right, we're gonna move on and kind of get into what is nostalgia and it's tied to horror. So the inspiration that I had for this panel was everybody had feelings when they saw Stranger Things, and it invoked something that everyone was like, oh. And one of the things that I noticed was that Stranger Things actually brought people to horror that hated horror. And I was like, why is that? And it was, I strongly feel it was because of the nostalgia. So what is nostalgia and why does it tie really well with specific horror games? So you guys want to tackle that? I'm asking you guys, I'm the moderator.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I have an answer that I can give, but I'd like to hear your answer
Okay,
first.
great. Putting me on the spot. All right, so nostalgia is a hell of a drug. That's a thing I've heard many times. So to me, the combination of nostalgia and horror gets really interesting when it really starts to, I don't want to say attack, but creep into things that you thought were like safe and beloved back in the day. A few examples I was thinking of is like summer camp. I worked and went to a Boy Scout summer camp for many, many years, and that was always like a really cool, fun place to me. But then you also have obviously like Friday the 13th film franchise, which is all about serial killers in a summer camp, usually.
Spoilers.
Sorry, statute of limitations is over. It's more than 15 years.
You're right. You're right. I'll get to the Friday the 13th movie someday.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, so that's one of the things I was thinking about. Also, stuff like your school for some people was kind of like a spot that maybe not exactly a safe space all the time, but you didn't think of like creepy monsters or anything like that. So I've utilized that in a game where I had a vampire elder living in the high school pool in the little cubby. This is a really weird idea I came up with, but I don't know, it just stuck with me for some reason.
Actually, though.
I don't like the high school pool. There's something about it. Why is there so much chlorine in there? Clearly.
Have you met high schoolers?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not bathing before they get in that pool. They're not peeing before they get in that pool.
Oh, man.
So, for me, one of my favorite definitions of horror is seeing something approaching. So you see something on the horizon, you know it's going to reach you, you are powerless to stop it. And for me, one of the definitions of nostalgia is seeing your own old age approaching, knowing that you are not the hip young guy or gal or they that you used to be. So that can be horrifying to some people, knowing that you will, realizing maybe for the first time that you will eventually fade away into irrelevancy and probably death for most people. I don't know everybody, there could be immortals, I don't know, not here to judge. So yeah, there's a strong tie there between seeing something approaching, knowing you have no control over it, and maybe wanting to reach back to things that brought you comfort previously in your life. That's nostalgia and that's horror. To me.
So nostalgia for me is more remembering things where I didn't have so much burden on top of me, like bills and stuff like that, and finding or keeping a job or whatever the case may be. It was I could go out and play all day and come back, play until I go to sleep, and that was it. And I was very lucky that was my childhood for a lot of my childhood. And so like being able to like feel that ability to have no responsibility is very nostalgic for me. there's a specific scene in Stranger Things. I'm gonna keep going back to Stranger Things because that was the whole
She
driving.
just watched it last week, you guys. First time. She's blown away.
But there's a scene where they're at the arcade, and the arcade, if you didn't notice, the building was actually built in like a barn structure, like a metal barn structure. And there are many arcades that I went to as a kid in the 80s and 90s where they were in like a metal barn structure because that's where they had. And so that was like really nostalgic, like just down to the detail of the building. And I was like, oh, I remember doing that. That's just so weird and like so like takes me back to going camping and going to the arcade on the campground that's built in like a laundry, building.
Yeah, you remember shopping malls? We were going to those?
Oh my gosh.
What a throwback.
I went to one of those yesterday.
I know.
It was dead. So sad.
It was just roving bands of teenagers.
No, teenagers don't go to the mall. Don't be ridiculous.
No.
That's what when I was last there 12 years ago. That's what it was.
Okay, so why does horror fit so well then with that feeling?
So, to build off of your definitions, for you, nostalgia is going back to a time before you realized that the world was as complex as it is. Not necessarily as bad as it is, but just as complex as it is. And generally, complexity means paying bills and having responsibilities. And for a lot of people, that's something that they would rather not do, which is why nostalgia is a thing. I personally, if I never had to pay a bill again for the rest of my life, I would be happy. I'd be dead and homeless, but until those 2 points, I would be fairly happy. What was your question? I was going somewhere with this, I promise.
Horror. Why does
horror
tie
fit
in so
into
well?
that? Horror ties into that so well because as an adult, as a more mature person with those responsibilities, you look back on that scene where you were just a fresh-faced, innocent youth, and you realize the world has always been that complex. The world has always had a lot going on, and now, looking back on it, you are aware of it. So, yeah, okay, we're set in 1983 or whatever. You were 5, 6, 7 years old at the time. None of you were born at the time. I get it. I'm an old man. So, wow, really? You look great. Good pick. So, yeah, you weren't aware maybe because, you had that privilege. You were a child. You did not know your parents protected you from all of that. But looking back on that, now you're playing someone who is a child or who is a young adult or who maybe is just an adult, an old man like me. And now you're aware that, yeah, okay, those TV shows that I liked are on TV and the food that I can't get is available in stores now. But you're also aware that everybody everywhere is smoking a cigarette and the entirety smells like an ashtray. The walls are fake wood panel, and hey, there's vampires out there too. You didn't know this when you were a child. There's vampires. Maybe the vampires are meant to be a stand-in for nuclear annihilation fears that your parents had, or grandparents for some of you, tiny infants that are in the audience. But now you're aware of this in the game, and you have to deal with this, and you have to understand that both of those things are true. That for you, this time was a magical wonderland of irresponsibility and play and excitement. But for others, it was a time of fear, a time of terror, a time when they thought at all times that they were a wrong sneeze or a bad day for Ronald Reagan away from the end of the world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, kind of playing off of that, those are great points, Chigg.
Thank you.
One interesting thing that you can kind of see from that kind of description is that you can really lean into a lot of loss of innocence, because this is probably going to be a story where that nostalgic child or children begin to realize what's really going on beneath the surface to them. So that's going to be a lot of horror for you as a player taking a look at this, because you realize, oh, they're not going to have that great time I did. They're going to actually see what's truly going on. And that could, yes, be metaphors for like supernatural beings, that kind of stuff. But I think that's one angle you can definitely take with nostalgic horror in that vein.
All right. So we kind of touched upon this then. I'm gonna flip around the notes here. Sensory aspects of nostalgia. One big thing for me and goth people and Vampire the Masquerade players, well, clove cigarettes. The smell of I'm not a smoker. I've never been a smoker, but being around clove cigarettes, yeah, like as soon as someone starts smoking cloves, I'm like, oh, I miss that. I don't smoke. I miss that smell though. Mm-hmm. And so like different types of sensory aspects. It doesn't have to necessarily be smell, but it can be other things like the couch that everybody had growing up. You know, like that was in Stranger Things, and that was a huge discussion. But it's also been in other movies too. I think it was in I want to say Jeepers Creepers. The nostalgic couch was in there too somewhere. So, like stuff like that. So like sensory aspects. What sensory stuff do you guys tie into feeling nostalgic, or like would throw into a nostalgic game?
So one real easy one to do is music. If you're playing something set in the 80s, the 70s, the 50s, whenever, there's music recorded from that time. I mean, if you're set in the 1820s, maybe not so much. Maybe, I don't know.
Wax cylinders.
There you go, yeah. Music is a real easy one to do. It can be thematic. It's meant to evoke emotion. That's the point of music. So you can use it to evoke the emotion that it's meant to evoke, or you can use it as a counterpoint to the emotion in the scene. So for Alphaville's Forever Young is a song that I like from the 80s. You can use that in a vampire game, while your vampire is attacking somebody. Because, hey, maybe they will live forever. But is it really what they were wanting at the time? Nobody wants to be a vampire. Somebody wants to be a vampire. They're wrong.
Yeah. You guys can take some notes here if you want to kind of start freaking me out. So I used to play role-playing games and card games and stuff in this like old. The game store was in an old factory. It was an old soap factory. So there's a lot of strange smells. That nostalgia couch was in there. I don't know how it ended up in there, but it was there. It was dusty. But there was weird scents in there. You get the stale kind of soap smell in certain parts of the store, and then the basement where all the gaming happened was this like moldy cheese, which is probably mold. It never got cleaned. I'm still alive, so it's probably okay. But
you have the black lung, but you
yeah. So I think from a smell standpoint, those are two things that kind of stand out to me. And that also kind of harkens back to like safe spaces that actually might have been kind of creepy or strange. I could probably base a horror one shot just in like that old factory game store that I used to play in. And talking about other senses, I think one of the most challenging ones would probably be taste, unless everyone like used to drink the same high C or other things.
Everybody remembers Ecto Cooler, even if you weren't alive when Ecto Cooler was a thing. You have a cultural sense memory of Ecto Cooler.
Or Pepsi Sticks, which are still around.
Crystal Pepsi's delicious.
Remember those candy cigarettes that they don't sell anymore?
You can
They
find
do.
some. You can still
Well,
get those.
okay.
You gotta go.
especially-
You gotta go to the sketchy gas station to get them.
Oh,
though.
Ooh, okay. I got some angles now.
I think Spirit Halloween still has them from the 80s.
No, I mean I don't really have much else. I'm just kind of like bouncing off a couple ideas.
But no, you're
taste.
right. There's
It's kind of
nothing.
a
There's
challenging
nothing more
one.
horrifying than a McDLT. I agree. It keeps the hot side hot and the cold side cold.
What is going on?
What? What are you talking
What's happening?
about?
I don't have these this
deal
cultural
too?
frame of reference, Chigg.
Yeah.
I don't
It's
understand.
a sandwich from McDonald's.
Okay.
It didn't last very
When?
long.
Apparently not. When?
Styrofoam containers. That's something you can use to bring back memories. I got there. Not for flavor.
The feel of the styrofoam,
Yeah.
right?
Be careful with that one because that one can trigger a lot of people.
What?
The feel and sound of styrofoam
Yeah, the sound
being
of styrofoam
sweet
being
can actually be a trigger for someone with sensory
Whoa.
issues. That is where consent comes in.
Kind of bad.
Life lesson. I didn't know.
Yeah, it's very similar to like nails on a chalkboard.
Ooh,
Yeah,
For
it's not
people.
a pleasant
Yeah.
sound. But
Yeah.
Some people with the nails on a chalkboard thing can do the styrofoam and vice versa. Like it doesn't bother them. But yeah, other people it's like makes their teeth feel weird. Like yeah, that's actually a sensory thing.
Cicadas too is a big one.
Cicadas, yes.
Yeah,
I
but you
love
gotta find the
cicadas.
cicada.
Oh.
But yeah, there are people that are terrified of cicadas. And then you get me, I'm from Wisconsin, and then I go south, and the cicadas are like Mack trucks. and I thought that they were actual like fire alarms going down there. And I was like, why is no one answering the fire alarm? And they're like, it's a cicada. And I'm like, how big is a cicada? Is it like a bus?
Like this big.
That's a bus.
It's
like
a short
our
bus.
cicadas are like this.
There's some cicadas like that.
Yeah, like they're not that big. They're big. They're bigger than the regular bugs, but they're not that big.
Everything's bigger in Texas.
Another sensory thing that a lot of people may not realize is a sensory thing that you can throw in that might trigger a lot of things is the color combination of brown, yellow, orange, and black. Generally in a paisley print.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, there you go. Now people are like, yep.
Yep.
Paisley print too is another like visual sensory thing, but do like the muted colors. They didn't start doing the bright, vibrant colors until like the aughts for Paisley. They had mostly muted colors. A lot of that micro velvet texture, which again, texture is very, very much a sensory thing for people. So make sure you let people know you're going to be doing sensory, tactile stuff.
Oh yeah, corduroy. Let them know before you pull out the corduroy.
Oh God, yeah. Velvet for some people too. Some people just cannot, or microfiber. But microfiber wasn't around like in the 80s and 90s, and so that wasn't too much of a thing.
We used a t-shirt to clean our glasses. It didn't clean them, but we used it anyway.
What was either that or the tissues with the lotion in it? Because that always works so well. Ask me how I know that one.
Could you still wear glasses?
I still wear glasses, yeah. Okay, so since we started talking about like some of the external stuff and everything like that, we're going to talk about different settings now and how we can tie settings into nostalgia. We're going to go generic at first, and then we have a whole list of specific settings that we can talk about. So how would you go about starting to build stuff into your setting that is nostalgic? Like, what would you do as a GM?
So I'd probably pick like probably the town you live in and just start looking at old photos from like, let's say the 80s, if you want to do 80s, but even just the aughts. I live in Boston. I've been there for about 20 years now.
His
It's
whole
changed.
life.
20 years, and it's changed a whole lot. So just going back and seeing what certain neighborhoods were like, what was there, gyms that are in like old auto garages and stuff, random fresh fruits markets that we don't have anymore. That kind of stuff can be really good just to get some kind of visual touchstones to start building out from. And then you can probably give you some ideas for the smell. You might not be able to capture dirty Boston water smell, honestly, but you can at least describe it, right?
Gasoline. That would be one, like for gas stations.
Sure, I could go wet a rag.
Well, they make candles now that smell like gasoline.
Why would they do that?
What is
Because
happening in
people
this
like that smell.
Well, I just had a conversation with someone that really likes the
This
smell
candle
of
smells like a
asphalt.
skunk.
So,
Smell of
Yeah.
asphalt.
the smell of fresh asphalt, that kind of sulfurous smell?
Yeah, I'm from Texas. I know what hot asphalt smells like. Yeah, it's not pleasant. Okay, but different strokes, I guess.
So that's one thing to start with.
Okay.
So one thing that I do to dial that in is find something that is that has changed considerably now. So one thing that I use for nostalgia in my games is communication. Everybody in this room has a cell phone. I guarantee everybody in this room has a cell phone. Even 25 years ago, that was absolutely not true. There might be 2 cell phones in this building 25 years ago. If you needed to contact somebody, you had to have change or access to a phone that you knew you could use. You then had to memorize a phone number, call that person, and hope that they were there. And if they weren't, and it was late enough in the cycle of technology, leave a message on a machine that they may or may not get for a day or a week or ever if their dad gets home first and just says, that's just Chigg's friend, we can erase that, we don't need to hear that. So find something that's changed and noticeably changed. It can be radio, which is a thing that used to exist. You had to listen to the radio and listen to the music that they wanted you to hear when they wanted you to hear it, or have cassette tapes. Or it could be communication, like I said. It could be transportation. If you live in a place that previously had public transport and now they've decided not to do that because it's easier just to have Uber drivers everywhere, or the opposite direction, they now have public transport and you used to have to go everywhere on foot. Note the changes, and when you're describing your town, your setting, your community, mention these things. Mention that there's a payphone on the corner next to the gas station. There's a bank of payphones because multiple people have to make calls at the same time. Mention things like that. Mention, you see the bus driving by on the old green line or whatever. Just little things like that to evoke the difference.
Resources for finding stuff about your area, local area, especially if you're going to set it in there. Milwaukee Historical Society has put out books, like actual full books with photos and everything like that, of each of the neighborhoods within our area. We have like a whole bunch of clusters of neighborhoods that make up the Milwaukee general area. And it talks about things like what mafia family was prevalent at the time, businesses and stuff like that. They had pictures of business fronts and everything like that, the breweries that were around, the fact that Milwaukee has some of the only non-wartime cannon fire in the northern part of the United States at all happened, and it was because the founders wanted to be king of Milwaukee and shot cannons at each other over the riverbeds, and there are actual cannonballs still in the riverbeds, and they kept doing that until all of the people in Milwaukee got angry with them and took them out drinking at the bar. And that is one of the ways that Milwaukee was founded. But your library may have those resources for you. Your historical society will definitely have resources for you, and those are generally, you can get those for free. The other places that you can look to is going to be the internet, but sometimes the historical societies don't have everything on the internet because they don't have the resources to put it on. So you might be able to find more stuff there than that. If you're lucky enough to live in an area that you have books about your neighborhoods too, specifically, you can get those. I know Milwaukee's very, very into their history and stuff like that, which is why we are very lucky to have those resources. So.
Yeah. And if you want to really get down and vibe in the nostalgia, you can look at some microfiche on the old machines and
yes.
Just do it the good old ways. So
the Tolkien exhibit has that. Has stuff on microfiche that you hit that you can only look at microfiche right now. They're currently scanning it digitally, so you can actually look at the microfiche on digital. Like they aren't even taking it off the microfiche. It's just you scan the microfiche. And it's really kind of funny.
Do most libraries still have a microfiche machine, or is that gone?
Usually
they do not. There might be one at the main library branch in your town, but
Okay.
most libraries I went
It's
into
in the-
I went
it's
into a
in the
library and asked if
basement.
they had old
Yeah, yeah.
newspapers, and they said, "Oh, we have like the last 2 years." I'm like, "What about like 20, 30 years ago?"
The stacks.
Yeah, like, "Oh no, we might have that at the main branch."
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
they did have
actually,
a microfiche machine for
When
that.
I was in high school, one of my jobs in the library was throwing out the stacks, basically. They're like, no one looks at these. Let's just toss them. It's kind of sad.
It is very sad.
There's a couple I hid, so that they won't be thrown away.
Smart man.
Yeah.
Of course, now you don't remember where you hid them, so they're lost to time.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to talk about some RPGs now and some media, other media too, where you can either use for inspiration for nostalgia, or you can set your game in there to kind of invoke that nostalgia. I have a whole list here. So I know you guys had specific ones that you wanted to talk about. You had a specific one that you wanted to talk about. Why don't you bring that up first?
I'm going to bring up a different one first, but it's in the
Okay.
same vein. So, this doesn't go into 80s nostalgia. I know we focused on 80s a lot because that's been a thing,
Because that's when we were all young, right?
You're like,
Yeah, I mean, the 80s were a weird time, and it was the cusp of a lot of changes. Ronald Reagan did a lot of questionable things that changed our economy from, manufacturing to, like, shareholder and those kinds of economics. So, it's definitely an interesting time of, like, unfettered consumption, and certainly is a nostalgic time for some people, but it was also a terrible time for other people. So, we'll probably talk about that more with some of these, and I might start ranting and raving about Ronald Reagan, and I apologize. But one game I wanted to talk about, which I think typically is going to have much more closer, more recent time frames, is this game Changeling the Lost, which is one of the Chronicles of Darkness games. And basically, usually you play as a character who was a child that was stolen by an evil fairy, and brought over to another dimension, basically. And as this happens, you were replaced by this construct, this soulless construct called a fetch. It looked like you, it sort of acted like you, and replaced you with your family. Eventually, you'll probably escape from the fairy captors, and then maybe you'll kill the fetch or remove it, kidnap it, something like that, and try to take your spot back with your family. But this fetch has really kind of changed and twisted a lot of things that you probably valued as a child. Maybe a teacher that you thought was great no longer likes you. Maybe your old fort in the woods has been kind of just like corrupted and defiled. Maybe they're doing like some dark rituals there. And this spot, which was probably like a safe space for you, no longer is. And there's a lot of issues, of course, with kind of stepping back into this life that kind of is no longer yours. I think that would, in a lot of ways, play with the kind of nostalgic feelings that you, as a human, probably have, as a player have, compared to what the character is actually experiencing. I don't know, Chigg, if you have anything else to mention on that Changeling game.
No, I agree.
Okay.
Changeling the Lost is a great game to explore themes of alienation in your own life. So that ties into nostalgia, because, to coin a phrase, you can never go home again. Everything is different when you try to go back. The situation is different, the people are different, you're different. So you'll never recapture the feeling that you had reading a book when you were 10 for the first time. Because the words on the page are the same, yes, but when you read them now, you can put meaning into them that you didn't have as a 10-year-old. Because you're different. You have more experience, I hope you have more experience than you did when you were 10. You have different experiences, and Changing the Lost is a game about, well, not just about that. There's also, you can fight aliens who kidnapped you. That's pretty cool. But it's a game about trying to fit yourself into a world that you no longer recognize, and that no longer recognizes you in turn. And that is both horrible and also nostalgic.
All right. Yeah, I feel like the whole having to recapture yourself or trying to grasp at that is something that would definitely be horrifying because you're like, no, I want to feel this again, and you can't. So that's definitely like a personal horror. Changeling is the darkest game in the world of darkness.
Yeah, certainly.
Always.
Certainly. And when you're actually running Changeling Lost in this context, I think a good idea would be, let's say you're the storyteller, you might want to talk to your player and just have them give you those touchstones that you think the character had before they were taken off to this other fairy realm. Have them maybe write little notes, bullet points, short stories, anything like that. And then you'll probably use that as ammunition against them. I don't really want to say it that way, but I just did. So you shouldn't antagonize them, but having these kind of personalized touchstones, which maybe the other players at the table are not familiar with, is going to give a lot more credence to your game.
A fun thing to do in Changelings Lost would be to have a group of characters who are all from one town. So they may all have ties to the same touchstones, but because they were kidnapped at different points in time, they have different views on those same touchstones. So for you, Mrs. Smith, the 5th grade teacher, was your favorite teacher. She was great, she was amazing, but somebody who was kidnapped 6 years earlier than you knew Mrs. Smith as younger and less into her students. And maybe because she lost a student who was kidnapped by the fairies, she took a deeper interest in your character. And then ironically, that character was taken.
That's some good material.
OC, do not steal.
All right. A couple other things. We'll stay in the world of darkness and Chronicles of Darkness for a little bit. Vampire the Masquerade, obviously. The 3rd edition, which is revised, is what a lot of people recognize, but the 1st and 2nd editions are also very, very nostalgic for people.
They were there too.
I started with revised. That was my first one, and so that's like the one that I lean towards more, as well as like the 20th edition stuff. But Vampire the Requiem New Wave.
So New Wave Requiem is a Chronicles of Darkness setting book for Vampire the Requiem, and it is set in the 1980s. It does probably the best job I've seen in a supplement written after the 80s to describe what the 80s were like for people who might not have been there. You all need to buy a copy because you were all babies and do not know this. It tells you how to run a game where you are an ageless being stuck in a time that is constantly changing. So for a long time, history was the past. I guess technically always history is the past, but history is something that happened to other people. You were not living in a historic era. Now, for those of you who are babies, everything changes all the time, rapidly. There are massive changes in the government, the world, the borders, the conflicts, everything. But for 40 years after World War II, for most people in the United States, in Western Europe, things were fairly static. So until the 80s, when all that started to kind of crumble in on itself, people lived static lives. They lived the same lives as their parents, give or take, some upward mobility, some downward mobility if you invested in the wrong stocks or whatever. Never invest in Apple stocks. They're never going to go anywhere. Vampire the Requiem New Age does a great job of explaining to you as the player how to play a character who is static, who is unchanging in a rapidly changing time. And just reading about how quickly things are changing, how, okay, yeah, we're not wearing, leisure suits and, listening to disco anymore. Fashions change, music changes slowly, but how everything around you is changing. It is a fascinating look at the 1980s.
Yeah, I'd also say that New Wave Requiem is kind of a nostalgia antidote in a lot of ways, because it really points out a lot of the really horrible things that were going on, from a social standpoint, political standpoint, how certain, ethnicities were treated, and certain, sexual orientations were treated at that time. So I really appreciate that as someone who picked it up when they were 20 and thought like, oh yeah, the 80s, yeah, that was awesome, man. That was the time, wasn't it? And then reading this, I'm like, oh gosh. And the RPG book is what pointed this out to me. It wasn't like, people I was talking to or some sort of like actual history book I was
We were
reading.
trying to keep you young and pure. We were trying to keep you innocent.
Too late. Eddie Webb showed me the light.
Rip those scales from your eyes.
Yeah, I think it has a lot of value in that regard, because there still is a I don't want to call it an agenda. What's the word I'm looking for? Just a vibe. There's a vibe that the 80s were great.
Yeah.
And the 80s were great for a certain type of.
I think the word you're looking for is a mimetic complex. It's
Maybe.
a group of ideas that the 80s were a fantastic place to be and live.
Yeah, indeed. But it wasn't for a lot of people. And I think that's a book that does a great job at that. And if that's something you want to explore, it's good to check out.
And here's a fun fact. That's true about every era in human history. For some people, it was amazingly great. And usually it's a narrowing section the further back in time you get. If you go back to the Renaissance, it was great if you were 1% of 1% of 1% of the population, but the other 99.999 whatever percent were dirt farmers, and they lived a horrible, crappy, short life and probably died in childbirth, men and women. Look it up, it's a fact. But while that was an eye-opener for Mike, that's true of any era that you might have nostalgia for. So keep that in mind.
All right, and then the next game to talk about that's in that same vein is Digital Wave. You brought that one up, Mage.
Digital Web?
Digital Web. Yeah. Oh, I typed it wrong. Digital Web.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was confused as well.
Typos happen. We're professionals. So you were
That's
asking.
why I have an editor.
I fell down to my job. So you were asking for things that might evoke Tron-like nostalgia.
Yes.
So Mage the Ascension has a whole group called the Virtual Adepts, and they are hackers, like from the movie Hackers. Not like real world hackers where you call Debbie at HR and say, I forgot my password. And Debbie at HR goes, oh, it's 123 password. And then you have access to whatever you want. So they're the people who like sit at the keyboard and they each have half of a keyboard. It's real dumb. And that's their magic. They control information, they control computers, and thereby they control reality. So Tron is a great movie from the very early 80s. Not that great, actually. I rewatched it recently. It's a movie from the early 1980s.
Yeah, there we go. It's got two great actors in it. Three great actors.
It has three great actors, three great together. That's a commercial reference that none of you get because you're children. It is about a guy who developed a computer company. The computer company was taken from him, and they stole his ideas, and they're using it. He has to go prove that. So he does that, goes to their headquarters, and gets pulled into the computer.
No way.
I know, wild times. It's a Disney movie, so it's not like remotely accurate to anything in reality.
There's also a lot of discussion of religion inside the computer, as I recall.
Yeah.
It was it was an angle that I've never seen done before.
It was definitely a thing that was done, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want to have a game that focuses on fake hackers or things that people thought might be hacking in the 1980s, Mage's Ascension has that built right in for you. You can go into the computers and you can get eaten by creatures that live in the computer realm and want to keep reality more real than you might want to keep it.
So it's kind of like the nostalgia of the wonder of computers.
Yeah,
I guess you would say.
Yeah, because now everybody has a computer in their pocket. Nobody's really wowed by.
Oh, actually, no. This is the thing.
A parser or a cursor. So.
What's his name? William Gibson, Neuromancer. When he wrote that,
he had never touched a computer.
He never
before.
touched a computer. This is a cyberpunk, the OG cyberpunk novel, all about hackers and computers and stuff. Never touched a computer.
Famously written on a
and when
typewriter.
he finally,
not a joke.
When he finally got a computer, he's like, "Where's all the crystals and stuff?"
This is supposed to be magic. So yeah, tying back into one of my earlier suggestions, look at what's changed. Even people's perception. While yes, computer technology has advanced, obviously, in the last 40, 50, 70 years, it's no longer just a lady sitting at a pad, doing numbers. That was a computer when my mom was in school. See, there's people older than me. People's perceptions of what technology is have changed. So in the early 80s, computers were basically magic. What's a program? I don't know. It's a guy. It's Bruce Boxleitner. He's a cool dude. He's on your side. What's a CPU? It's a big giant floating head that shoots laser beams at you and tries to kill you with a frisbee. Where is that in this box? Don't open the box. You'll never fix it. It's basically magic. So, yeah, that's a thing.
It's actually kind of interesting to think about because very early 80s, like pre-1984, there weren't really home computers, right? For the Apple, so it was pretty much.
I had a Tandy 1000 as a child.
Sure, you had something, but basically
came from Radio Shack.
Basically, computers were just in. Most computers were just in like offices and corporations, and of course they could be very huge.
Yeah, a computer was a room.
I don't really know where I'm going with that, but I think it'd be something interesting to play with. The fact that no one has computers except for these corporations. Like, what if you were doing Shadowrun, retro Shadowrun?
That's on here, so we can talk about that. We can shift
Oh, it's happening. It's happening. Shadowrun, 1983.
So, speaking of computers as big as a room, a game that I ran, a superheroes game, had a character who had techno-telepathy, right? So she could talk to your iPad and get all your pet pictures off of it or whatever. She could open locked doors and stuff. And so I hid a clue in a computer from 1973. So she gets into this, this superhero headquarters. It's now a museum because it was, Jimmy Carter's Heroes of Tomorrow. She gets into the museum. She gets to the computer. I say, all right, you're in a giant room. It's got the little reel-to-reel tapes on the wall. What do? She says, I put my USB drive in the computer. I'm like, no, you absolutely do not. Well, how do I get any information off of this? I'm like, there's a printer in the corner.
Oh, was it one of the ones with the dots on it that you?
Oh, it was a dot matrix printer. Yeah, absolutely. She says, all right, I find the file. You find the file. Okay, yeah, you've made that roll. I print it. I'm like, okay. 20 minutes pass and you're a third of the way through the page is printing out. Don't worry, they're neatly stacked. So sometimes nostalgia isn't a happy feeling.
That's where the horror comes
Sometimes
in.
the past was not as pleasant as our present.
Should we talk about Shadowrun a little bit? I didn't put this on the list.
I put that on the list.
Yeah, it's on the list. Yeah, we have a couple minutes, and then we'll start. I'll open up for questions. If nobody has questions, we'll just continue talking about other games. So.
I mean, Shadowrun's kind of in the same thing that we were just talking about, wherein this is like the kind of retro tech feels
So-
and things like the Matrix.
I'm currently running a Shadowrun game for my home group.
Well, which edition?
Third edition, obviously, the
Oh,
best
okay,
edition.
all right.
So, I'm running a group, a campaign for my home group, and one of the guys says, who's my age, you know, he's not, you know, a young child or anything like our audience. He says, all right, I take out my cell phone and I call my contact and I say, you get a busy signal. And he goes, and he had to stop for a minute and remember that busy signals were a thing. He's like, I'm in the future. It's 2053. I said, you're in the future of 1989. Busy signals are a thing. You called his cell phone from your cell phone. He's on a call. And it was just shocking to him that could be a thing. But the horror in Shadowrun is the horror of the 1980s writ large. If you're unfamiliar with the setting, it's set in the future. It's cyberpunk, plus also there's magic. So if you want to be a guy who breaks into mega corporations and steals their files, but also you're a dwarf and you can cast magic, this is the game for you. Third edition, best edition. Don't at me. The horror of Shadowrun is the horror of the yuppie 1980s writ large. Corporations control everything. The world is horribly polluted. We have a horrible, inefficient government in charge of our world. The United States, Germany, other countries have fallen into in faction fighting, broken up, made up in some cases, turned against each other. And also, there was a plague that killed a whole bunch of people. That happened twice, so be on the lookout. But hey, there's elves, there's dwarves, there's orcs, there's trolls. It's pretty fun.
There's corporations controlled by dragons. I mean, it's awesome.
That character, Lofweir, who sits on the board of Saderkrupp, which is a corporation that primarily is an arms dealer, is the biggest in-your-face anti-corporate message in the game that nobody gets. He
I
is.
don't get it, so
He's the guy who runs the corporation, and he's a dragon. All he's doing is hoarding money. That's the joke. He's the world's literally biggest yuppie. He wants all the toys for himself, so he is in charge of this company that makes most of the toys. Do you get it? Don't feel bad. I didn't get it until like 5 years ago. And I'm a million years old, as we discussed.
Big vampire.
So yeah, the horror in Shadowrun is economic horror.
Yeah.
So, while yes, technically, if you are this particular phenotype, if you look the right way, if you act the right way, if you kiss up to your boss the right way, then maybe you can go from living a lifestyle of utter destitution to a lifestyle where maybe, just maybe, once every 3 or 4 weeks you can afford actual food that came from an actual plant or an actual animal once. Maybe. That's the horror in Shadowrun. And in all of cyberpunk fiction, I guess, if you think about it, really. I like Shadowrun because it has dwarves and elves and stuff, and it's cute.
All right. So I'm going to open up if anyone has any questions. We have about half an hour left, so I want to give plenty of time. And then if we run out of questions, we can continue to vamp on about stuff. So, yes.
So, a question over here?
Yeah, so I was wondering, you know, a lot of the nostalgia that you're going for is times when you were alive, but do you have any, like, suggestions for how to try and get nostalgia for times when people weren't there? So the 1980s, you said that there was one that described it really well, but, like, I played a game that was set in the 1910s, and we tried to get into it by drinking absinthe.
I cannot recommend that as a way, but Jepson's Malort is right there if you just want to, if you hate yourself that much. It's
Why
an
would
option.
you suggest that?
Look, she's drinking absinthe. There's only one more step down, is what I'm saying.
No, there's ouzo in between those.
My suggestion would be, again, to go to your library or historical society. As far as specific games, I want to say Cthulhu, like
That's
some
primarily
of
in the 20s.
20s though, yeah.
That is close.
Oh, yeah. What am I thinking?
Yeah, there's a,
Never Going Home.
There you go. I was getting there.
I
didn't wanna
wrote
rush.
on the darn thing. Never Going Home is about World War I Eldritch horror. And so there are whole sections where they are like taken right out of soldiers' books. And a lot of the battles and stuff are actually historically semi-accurate in that we have to also be able to fit some of the Eldritch horror in there, so some things have changed. So it's like history adjacent, but it is developed by someone who their specialty is World War I. So they made sure that things are as accurate as they could have been.
So one thing that you can do for any historic setting, and I mean any of them, go to Steve Jackson Games, look up their GURPS supplements. They have a GURPS, whatever. I'm not recommending you play GURPS. For the love of God, I am not recommending that. But they have supplements for every historic era, for everything you can possibly. There's a GURPS Mars that covers, like, if you want to be an Elon Musk type, who is preferably not as big an asshole, and just get on a rocket ship and fly to Mars tomorrow. Here's how that would be. But if you want to be, what was the movie that didn't do very good about the guy on Mars? Not that one, no. John Carter, thank you, John Carter of Mars. If you want to go fight the green Martians against the white Martians from DC, that's in there too. It has a tremendous, and every GURPS book has a range that's just that wild. You can, sorry. Not anymore. It has everything from utter scientific accuracy to just made up balls to the wall madness. So GURPS is my go-to for research for RPGs because I'm very old and I grew up before there was such a thing as Wikipedia, which you can also use now for free. One thing that I'd recommend, however, for you specifically for the 1910s, that's generally what I think of as the end of history. Everything before that, the 1800s and such, that's the long ago, the long past. And everything up until then was, you're probably a farmer, you might be a shopkeep, you might be a miller, but you're probably a farmer. The 1910s is when a lot of industrialization happened. It's when the World War I was the last use of mounted cavalry against tanks. Not as we know them, but armored cavalry.
There's also more swords than guns.
There were more, yeah. Spears more than swords. Yeah.
And the wolves were actually a thing that they were more afraid of than the enemy.
Yeah.
So you can use a lot of historic information for a 1910s campaign because not a lot changed for 100 years, 50. I mean, yeah, telegraph went into existence and that was really a neato thing, but not. Yeah, but I said like in the last century.
But telephones were moving into houses and whatnot after that.
Yeah. So communication was starting to be a thing that people had, but you weren't as isolated as your grandparents were, for instance. But you probably could only call the 6 people on your party line. Party lines, for those of you who are tiny babies. There was a time in our history when a neighborhood had a phone number. And if you wanted to call someone in that neighborhood, you called that neighborhood and you waited until that person answered. So say that this is a neighborhood, you could call us. And if Crystal answered and you want to talk to me, you say, oh, I was calling for Bryce. And if I answer, you're calling for Mike, you can talk to me because I'm a chatty, fun guy.
You're also talking about the 1980s Soviet Union as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And everybody could listen in if they really wanted to. So if you had a boyfriend who was calling you, then your neighbor down the street knew exactly what you were talking about. God forbid you were talking about showing your ankles, because slattern.
I have a quick question and then also possibly a rant. I don't know. I'm curious what the 1910s game was about. Like, what was the setting context?
The setting that we were playing was, I wish I could remember the name, but it was a group of us investigators who were invited to, it was a Cthulhu-like game, we were invited to Cairo.
Oh, cool.
And then we had to investigate what happened to the lady.
Was it Masks of Nyarlathotep?
No.
Dang it.
I don't remember that because this was a few years ago.
That's
but like that was like the it was
This is a bit outside my wheelhouse, but there is, I'm sure, some nostalgia somewhere for looting stuff from Egypt. I think if you go to the British Museum, they'd be all.
Luckily, that wasn't what this game was about.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you eat a mummy?
We couldn't find it.
They were sold out, I get it.
By that point, actually, yeah, probably.
Oh, no.
So, I'm from the Northeast.
Did you eat a
So
mummy?
I've got no natural mummies there.
Okay.
No peat bog mummies that I know of. We do have punchwuggies out in Freetown State Forest, though. Better watch out for them.
Keep a lookout.
Yeah. But this country, certain regions has a real nostalgia for the old Wild West and that kind of stuff. I don't know how to tackle that, but that's your mentioning of nostalgia for times far past that you don't have a memory of. It seems to really resonate. I'm looking at somebody from Texas right now. Maybe you can bail me out on this.
Have I told you the best theory that I ever heard for what the Wild West was?
No.
It's post-traumatic stress disorder from the Civil War.
Yeah.
I can definitely see that. Yeah, a lot of people were moving out
If-
after that.
Specifically for the Wild West, my suggestion for an RPG would be Haunted West from Darker Hue Studios. It is in the same vein as Harlem Unbound.
Okay.
Same writer. Harlem Unbound is actually part of a lot of college curriculums, and it's also in the Smithsonian Museum as a historic piece because it is so historically accurately portrayed. It is written as a Black experience because that's the writer and his experience and what he wants, but it is written for everybody to play. I want to make that very clear. It is written for everybody to play, as long as you are playing it in good faith. But the historic research that he's done into both Black and queer cowboys is amazing. So definitely check that out if you're wanting to do the Wild West type of vibe thing.
That's a good tip. But sorry.
What was it called?
Haunted West.
Oh, that's just Haunted West.
Yep.
Harlem Unbound.
Oh yeah, Harlem Unbound is the other one. That one is Harlem, Cthulhu and Harlem.
So I was going to just leave a point that someone should.
I got you.
Okay. So why if the Wild West is PTSD from the Civil War, then why are people even to this day so nostalgic for it? I think that's something we should figure out. I don't think we're going to get the answer
Not today,
right here.
please. Not on the panel.
On this panel, because I have no idea. But I'm just like,
I'll tell you after the panel.
we should think about this. Anyway, we had more questions.
So my question is, I know recently in part of nostalgic horror, a lot of people liking like the weird genre that is mascot horror and like that kind of like old children's like twisting of that nostalgia. I know that's
Like
Yeah.
Five Nights at Freddy's and stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was wondering if you guys knew of any good games aside from Call of Cthulhu, if you like just moved it around, could work good for exploring those like older kind of things. My mind immediately goes to old amusement parks and old like rundown places like that, which is, I've been wanting to try a game like that for a while.
I got some great news for you. We got a list right here.
So all of those are definitely really good. Do you want this in the context of children exploring these things, or in the context of adults?
Probably adults looking back on like, look, it's an old children's place. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
McDonald's bowl.
I mean,
I have some.
That's scary now.
And you roll it.
yeah, I don't have
I
any
lost
specific
skin at the
suggestions.
I do.
play part.
Cult.
Yeah, cult would
You
definitely
do
have that.
cult with Muppets.
I'm sorry. You no, you do not do cult with Muppets. Disney owns Muppets, and they will sue you even if you're
Puppets.
doing it at your table. You do cult with puppets. This guy got it.
But yeah, if you want a reference, Happy Time Murders. Go watch that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Cult is a fantastic answer for that. If you're doing it as an adult, if you're doing it as a child, you could do
Kids Guide to Monster Hunting.
Kid's Guide to Monster Hunting for the PIP system. It is.
I love it. Well, most of it.
I can't tell you anything about it, but I think Crystal wrote it. I think it might be all right. I don't know.
If you like
actually
Gravity Falls, it's basically that. I wrote the book before I ever watched Gravity Falls, but you are kids, and you can play as adults too. But you basically find a guide to monster hunting. So you're like, oh, I'm gonna go do that. And then you find out that monsters are real, and adults can't see them. They can be affected by them, but they cannot see them. It has, you can adjust it for play for adults and stuff like that, but it's built for younger audiences, but there is consensual body horror. So there is like stuff that you can change about your body that you can consent to, and you can change at any point back to whatever you were. So, it is, I'm biased, but I love it. But as I was watching Gravity Falls, I'm like, I wrote this RPG already.
RPG 2.
Yeah, RPG 2. All right.
Yeah.
Kind of piggybacking off that, going to like your nostalgia for the 80s. There's been a trend in like indie games that Steve for nostalgia for the 90s being like in liminal spaces. Like think backward.
Yeah.
Do you have any RPG tabletop suggestions for like that level of nostalgia?
It's coming out.
It is.
Curseborn is all about liminal spaces.
Yeah, it
kind of
is.
playing
It
off
is
of that.
actually in the description, liminal
Yeah.
spaces.
I don't know if it's going to be super 90s. I still haven't really read it. I'm very confused about it.
I have the basis, and I actually wanted to do a read through with you guys too with that at some point.
Oh no, not
but
an RPG to read.
I
No.
know, right? But basically, Curseborn is a whole bunch of monsters genres put into one base system. So everybody is included in the base system. So werewolves, vampires, changeling,
Can I play a
ghosts.
mummy?
Yes, you can actually. But they include liminal spaces as part of the play space.
Yeah. But it's a big part of it, definitely. And it's going to be that kind of, for a more immortal character, kind of stumbling into the weirdness.
The other
Good. I look forward to that because I've wanted to do something with liminal space as a horror, and really kind of stumbled
Same.
Yep.
because the terror is there's nothing happening here, and that's real hard to get across at a table. I walk down the hall, nothing happens. I turn left. You're not gonna believe this, fam. Nothing happens again. Oh my gosh.
The other two suggestions that I would have would be Tales from the Loop. Especially if you do outside liminal spaces, that would be fantastic for that, where you like, it's like Myst, right? Like those of you who know Myst, you're like literally in an outdoor liminal space. Everybody is gone. And then also Cult. Again, Cult is also like a really, really great like catch-all for a lot of things. And I think liminal space horror would be fantastic for that.
Huh. Yeah, I played a cult game set in a Mykia.
We got lost?
Where we got lost
man.
in the maze, and there may or may not
IKEA
have been
is
a
a
Minotaur chasing after us.
IKEA is a liminal space.
Yeah. Did you hear about the guy who got arrested for putting arrows going the wrong way?
Yes, that's why they now project the arrows from the ceiling. That is
Oh.
literally why they project the arrows from the ceiling now.
That's hilarious.
All right, do we have any other questions? No? We are actually coming up on our time.
We
so.
are.
All right, so a couple other suggestions that I would have for, and you guys can comment on these things. If you are looking for things that are similar to the game Stranger Things.
TV show.
Or the TV show. Well, there's also the game. There's like the setting
There's a game?
There's a setting material for it, yeah.
Of course there is. Go on.
You can check out Kids on Bikes, which is a fantastic setting, very similar to it. You can also check out, what's the other one?
Things from the Flood.
Things from the Flood, which is the expansion for Tales from the Loop. And that is way more horror than Tales from the Loop is.
Yeah, if you played Tales from the Loop and you said, this is real tame, that's what you're looking for right there.
And then other media, if you haven't seen Paper Girls, watch it.
Red Paper Girls. It's a comic book.
It's also on Amazon.
What isn't these days?
Well, I guess I got to get Prime
It's
now.
a show. It's also a comic, but yes, definitely
Comic
check
was
that
real
out.
good if you haven't read it. Pro tip. Do that.
The TV series is also really good too.
I prefer the original.
All right. So I'm gonna let everyone up here wrap up, and then we'll have, if you guys want to.
I'm going to recommend Die, the comic book. It's from Kieran Gillen. I think 90% sure about that. It's about a group of teenagers and one little sibling who were playing Dungeons and Dragons in the 1980s and got pulled into the D&D world. So it's like the D&D cartoon, but they come back and, one of them is missing an arm and one of them doesn't come back. And so 30 years later, they go back to the world of Die. It's very dark and it is infused with nostalgia, and it does a great job of showing how some people change over time and some people are just always going to be jerks, and maybe you shouldn't be friends with them.
We've talked a lot about shows, RPGs, and that kind of stuff, comic books. I think there's a lot of written material that would be good to mine for that kind of nostalgia. One I'd probably recommend, which I think is from the very early 90s, is Damnation Game by Clive Barker. It is a lot of content warnings on this one. A lot of bad stuff happens in it.
You said it was by Clive Barker.
It's by Clive Barker, yeah. But I mean, for me, reading it was really weird because there's this one scene where the character's in a Pimlico apartment in London, and I was in a Pimlico apartment in London. So I'm like, what's happening here, everyone? Of course, it was different time periods and the like. But I think that's definitely really good to look at because typically, novels get into much more detail about those time periods and that they might have been written in a way that RPGs might not be or TV shows might not be. So I think that's a great thing to take a look at.
Another one too is Animorphs. You can actually read it for free on the website, on her website. But it is like some of the best horror and radicalized anti-war protest material you've ever read.
I've never read Animorphs.
Oh, you should. It's good.
It's only 54 books long.
Right?
I'll knock that out this afternoon. Thank you.
Like literally, it's kids going through trauma after trauma after trauma from
And one
war.
of them's a bird.
One of them stuck as a bird.
I love kids going through trauma. I will knock that out this afternoon.
I want to thank everybody for coming.
Thank you so much.
My name is Crystal Mazer. As I kind of talked about, I'm a writer and a developer for RPGs. I've written on things such as Chicago by Night, Let the Streets Run Red, and The Player's Guide for Vampire the Masquerade 5th Edition. I'm also the lead developer for Pip System, so that would be Kids Guide to Monster Hunting. I've worked on Never Going Home, on every single Kickstarter that they have run. I have a whole bunch of other stuff. If you search my name on DriveThru, you get almost 50 titles. So I'm also, if you're into Gloomhaven, I wrote on the Gloomhaven RPG. My business card is up here if you're interested, and it scans to all of the stuff that I have written on if you're looking for that. And yeah, you guys.
Hi, I'm Mike Andriuk. I've written a few things, nothing too major, but mostly it's just the old podcast. So if you want to listen to our podcast sometime, if you didn't get enough of us, didn't get enough of Chigg's jokes, got some business cards right up here, which can also, again, be turned into stickers with some double-sided tape.
I'm Chigg, and I've never made a joke in my life. I don't know what he's talking about.
And you have writing stuff too.
Yeah, a little bit. Don't worry about it.
We also write as a group community content.
We do.
So.
Yeah, I mostly read what they write. It's really good.
He's one of my editors. I'm sorry.
I'm an editor. Yeah, I mostly do the editing because I'm not that creative. I'm sorry. Like I said, I never told a joke in my life. Yeah, I'm also on Darker Days Radio. Please listen to our podcast. It's real good.
Awesome.
That's it. Thank you guys for
If-
coming.
If you haven't brought up your stickers.
Bring us stickers too.
Bring
Those
us
are cool.
tickets, please bring those up. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for coming. And if you guys have any questions, you guys can feel free to reach out to us. Just search, if you search like Google Darker Days Radio, we come right up. Like there's not a lot of competition.
Well, we
for
did
us.
before the AI. I don't know what we come up as.
We still come up now.
Oh, good.
So awesome. I will also have